Star Wars. It's always been one of my favorite franchises out there, as its vast universe has a lot of opportunities to tell some very intriguing stories, but recently Star Wars has been stuck in a bit of a rut for the past couple of years. They've consistently released show after show after show that fans are constantly disliking, although except for you, Andor. But yeah, each show that's been released has its own specific issues that make it not really work for the fans. But I have noticed two main issues that most of these shows have that I really want to talk about today. The first problem is a bit controversial, but I feel like they are focusing too much on the classic Star Wars characters like Obi-Wan, Boba Fett, Luke Skywalker, etc. By focusing on them and not on future characters such as Rey, Finn, and Poe, you're satisfying the older Star Wars fans, but you're not giving enough to allow for newer Star Wars fans to jump into the franchise. The prequels, for example, were an excellent jumping off point for new Star Wars fans to come into the franchise, as you introduce new characters to the story, such as the younger versions of Obi-Wan and Anakin, and you didn't really need to watch the other films in order to understand their overall story. Also, the Clone Wars acted as another jumping off point that allowed for more younger fans to get into the franchise and appreciate the characters from the prequels a lot more. This is why I'm more open to the idea of a Rey movie compared to most other fans I know of that despise the idea of it, but I really want to see them try to flesh out these characters and try to improve them in a similar way to how the Clone Wars series improved the prequels in terms of the quality of the characters. The second problem I wanted to focus on is something that's been most prevalent with a series like The Acolyte, and that is the focus on keeping it on a small scale. I feel like Star Wars works best when it's on a larger scale. Take, for example, the Clone Wars and then the Rise of the Empire. The Acolyte is meant to act as an introduction for much of the audience to the High Republic era, and I don't think it does this well because it focuses too much on the small scale and on the larger scale of what's going on in the galaxy, compared to other series such as the Clone Wars, which focused on the large-scale Clone War at the time. I feel like series like these should not happen until after a more bigger event-type show or movie. The best Star Wars shows focus on characters being involved in conflicts larger than themselves. The Clone Wars focused on how the Jedi and clones felt about the Clone Wars and how it felt to be a Jedi or soldier. The best episodes of The Bad Batch focus on how clones felt about the changing of the guard from the Republic to the Empire, as well as how the clones were being replaced. Andor focuses on the lives of everyday people living under the boot of the Empire and how they struggle in their fight for tyranny. Star Wars is at its best when it covers massive events through its characters, as Star Wars is, after all, a space opera. This is why I think that if we want a good Star Wars show to be out there that introduces new fans to the franchise and helps grow the fan base, we need some big event to follow around, and I'll let Lucasfilm decide on how they want the future years in the timeline to look, but for now I want to focus on something from the past, as I feel like it would be a great area to start with. I want to go back to the Old Republic timeline. Now, the events of this series would loosely be based on the KOTOR games, but only loosely based, as I want them to stand on its own compared to the KOTOR games, and I always believe the Old Republic to be similar to Greek mythology in a way, in that there can be multiple alternate versions of the tale that can be sprung up over the years, and that there are some nuggets of truth or similarities in them. Now I'll be going over my basic idea for season 1 of the show, and if people like that, I can go into further detail on further seasons and maybe spin-offs even of this idea. But before I do that, I just want to set some groundwork for the basis of the show, basically some background information for it. And essentially the show would take place about 20 years after a Jedi Civil War happened that led to several Jedi joining the dark side and becoming Dark Jedi, and it's this massive galactic civil war that's ravaged the galaxy, and now the Jedi are weary about fighting in wars, and the Republic also is in a bit of a weakened state, not having any real grand army and only focusing mainly on having a giant navy and planets having their own militias. There is also going to be a large Mandalorian presence in some other part of the galaxy, and basically the Mandalorians have formed themselves their own empire with different clans controlling different planets and such, and they're all under the rule of Mandalore the Ultimate, who is the last of the Tong species, and he is craving one last glorious battle in order to complete his legacy and make the Mandalorians be seen as a true fearsome force in the galaxy. We open the series with background origins of Revan, as we see him as a child in a village with his mother and father. And you see Revan developing some Force abilities at a very young age, and his parents are worried about what could happen to him, as they worry that he might be taken away to the Jedi Order, or even taken away by some of the still remaining Sith in the time period. Eventually, the parents would decide to call the Jedi and to summon them to pick up their son, as they think that would be the best way to deal with his Force abilities. But before the Jedi come, bandits strike their village and start burning it down and taking people hostage and raiding and all of that. And so Revan's parents get killed during this raid, and leaving Revan an orphan. As the bandits continue to raid the village, Jedi walks in hooded robes, and the bandits don't know who he is, and they try to attack him, but the Jedi ends up using his lightsaber to essentially kill them all, right? And Revan witnesses it, and he's at the same time happy that and thrilled that the Jedi is defeating them, but he's also scared and saddened because of all the death and destruction around him, as well as this mysterious hooded figure slaying all these bandits. And when the Jedi is done killing all the bandits, he sees Revan over there, and he recognizes that Revan is the person that he was meant to collect, and so he walks up to him, and Revan at first is afraid of him because this Jedi is a Bothan and he looks scary to Revan. But then the Jedi drops his hood down and he starts talking to him, and Revan eventually goes along with him and leaves the village and joins the Jedi Order and becomes his Padawan. The next 2 episodes would focus on Revan training to become a full Jedi Knight with Master Crook, and you will see more into Master Crook's past as being a Jedi Sith hunter known as a Seeker, and we'll see also how his training has gone into how Revan believes and acts out, as he is more violent and more rushing towards wanting to achieve justice through brute force. We'll also be introduced to some minor characters that will be of importance later on, such as Admiral Treyas, who will be a admiral that advocates for war against the Mandalorians, as he sees it as inevitable, and he's trying to get the Jedi to join along with him and support the Republic going to war against the Mandalorians, but he is unsuccessful. But Revan hears this, and he talks to Treyas, and he is supporting the idea of it, and while the other Jedi are not. By the end of the episode, a problem will come up involving a Dark Jedi, and Revan and Master Crook are sent in to fight the Dark Jedi, but by the end of the next episode, they'll defeat the Dark Jedi, but Master Crook gets injured and is blinded, and so he decides that he can no longer fight anymore and decides to retire towards his home planet. In episodes 4, 5, and 6, I want there to be an exploration of the Mandalorian culture through the character of Tar Vizsla, as I think he would be an interesting through point to examine the Mandalorians, as he was not only just a Mandalorian but also a Jedi. We could see Tar Vizsla going through his initiations into the Mandalorians through maybe a hunting culture kind of ritual, and we'll see how he relates with some of his other clan members and his family, who may be more of wanting to be going to war with the Republic than him, who wants to focus on the honorable warrior aspects of the Mandalorian culture, whereas his family and maybe other Mandalorians focus on the more warlike and conquering aspects of the Mandalorians. We'll explore how different parts of the Mandalorian culture view war, and we'll also see by the end of possibly the 6th episode that Mandalore the Ultimate summons the Vizsla clan as well as other clans to Manor to declare war on the Republic. So after the Mandalorian arc, I want to explore the Republic a bit through an arc involving a group of Republic Special Ops soldiers called the Havoc Squad, based on soldiers from the Old Republic game. These soldiers will be tasked by Admiral Treyas to assassinate Mandalore the Ultimate, as Admiral Treyas believes that Mandalore the Ultimate will be declaring war inevitably, as he's received some valuable intel that tells him that, and so he sends these people on a discreet mission. Also, as a little side note, one of the Havoc Squad members I think would be Cartho Nassi, as I feel like that would be a good place to put him, as he is a Republic soldier type, and I think exploring him through the Havoc Squad would be an interesting thing, as we can explore the morality of doing this preemptive assassination attempt in order to prevent more chaos from the Mandalorians declaring war on the Republic. By the end of the Republic Commando arc, the Commandos fail to assassinate the Mandalore, and instead they briefly blow up some parts of the manor, which lead to some Mandalorian casualties, and it makes Mandalore angry and more willing to go to war, and he instantly declares war on the Republic and starts pillaging different villages. And we see in the finale one of his pillaging being on a village that Master Crook is staying in, and we will see Master Crook try to confront Mandalore, but ultimately Master Crook dies at the hands of Mandalore, and Revan feels this through the Force, and he senses something has happened to his master. And so Revan and a group of other Jedi decide to go to investigate this, and they end up finding the bodies of all these dead villagers as well as his master. And I would also like take something from the KOTOR comic, where one of the Mandalorians protested to Mandalore killing all these villagers, and he ends up like dying on with them. And Revan would essentially take the helmet of this fallen soldier and use it as a symbol of his vengeance and hatred against the Mandalorians. So yeah, that will be the end of this season, and it would essentially lead into a second season that follows the events of the Mandalorian War. And if anyone wants to hear my thoughts on like how a season like this would go through, just leave a comment down below, like and subscribe. And if we get like a lot of views with this, I will continue on with this and give you more of my ideas for like this kind of series. And maybe down the line we could like try to make this like look like an actual like series with maybe like some more animation, stuff like that. But yeah, anyways, thank you for watching the video and getting this far. And if you're this far in, please like and subscribe, as that really helps me. And yeah, anyways, hope you have a good day, and goodbye.